slowly but surely, I started building up some clients and some experience, and I started learning how to get involved with these magazines, how to approach the editors, and I became friends with some of the editors, and I wrote for some from travel magazines, and I wrote for what was the name of that one? It was an air on what is it? The on in-flight magazine. So I got in with some of those, and then the thing is that the more experience you have, and the more that you show that you have a background in writing and you have accumulated some experience, then the easier it gets. And I landed a job online with the boxing website, and they paid. I was making about $600 a month just from the one website, which was it was very good for online, but it also lent some credibility to me because the website had quite a few really well-known writers from that had written in the New York Times and what was it? I think it was the Boston Herald or something like that. And so it was good for me. And I got to know people that way. And I started photographing a lot of boxing. And then every time I would go I'd go photograph some fight and go write about some fight, cover a fight, I would go and do some kind of a travel piece also. And I would submit to 4 or 5 different magazines, get into a couple of different travel magazines, and I started making money. And then between the website thing and this, I was doing very well. And during this time, my wife and I started getting more serious, and from that point on, I've been pretty stable. And that was, that must have been 12, 14 years ago, something like that. That was right around the time where I started saying, you know what? I'm really enjoying my life here again. That was kind of when things turned around, and I got a little bit of respect because I had ability and in writing, and I actually won an award with the Boxing Writers Association, and people got to know me, and I got a little bit of a reputation in boxing. I got a reputation of being a hard ass and telling the truth, but just kind of like I have on YouTube, but people seem to like it. The organizations like the WBC, the WBA, and they didn't always particularly like what I was writing, but then they don't always like the media anyway. So I didn't really care, and I still don't care because I still think that the majority of the time they're full of shit because they're self-serving. So, and I actually preferred to take some photos of travel or write an article or something about a certain place and get that published because I felt like there was less corruption, there was less going on that I didn't like behind the scenes. And it was easier on me. So from there, I just kind of built things up, and then eventually I got to the point where I started selling some of my photos to some big magazines, and I actually sold to HBO a couple of times and made some nice money from that. And that really helped. And ever since then, things have been pretty good. I mean, I can't complain. And I've kind of got it figured out. I've kind of got a few things where I know how to zig instead of zag, and I know how to zag instead of zig. But the one thing that I would say is that, like I said in the last video, if you really want to do it, you'll find a way. You'll dedicate yourself. I mean, I know guys now that are doing the same thing that I used to do, and they're doing fine. I mean, there's a guy that does it with MMA in Singapore and with like Muay Thai and stuff, and I know another guy who does it with Muay Thai. And I prefer not to do that because I don't only want to think of myself as somebody involved in boxing. And I do know I know a hell of a lot more about boxing than about Muay Thai or even MMA. But To be honest, the working as a journalist and working as a photographer and a boxing writer, that was fine. Although I had my moments where I didn't particularly like it, but most of the time I really liked it. I got a job working with a promotional company and working with boxers. I got that while I was working as a journalist. I ended up doing that instead of the journalism. I got to see a lot of things that I knew about, but I just kind of ignored. But I couldn't ignore them when I was involved. And I don't want to say it made me a little sick or anything like that, because I got to admit, I got to travel all over. I went to Colombia, I went to Nicaragua, I went to Panama, I went to Guyana, I went to Singapore for like a couple of months. I stayed in Singapore for weeks at a time, and I got to go to the Philippines many times, and I did all sorts of stuff. I went all kinds of places, and I made good money. I made better money than I had made in quite some time, and that was great. And there was some camaraderie between our team. But boxing's a dirty business, and so whether it was writing, which people have asked me now, oh, you should write again, you should photograph boxing again, you should do this. And I like a guy. He's a photographer. He's far, far, far better than I'll ever be, and that I could even dream of. And he is far more well known than I am. And I have total respect for the guy. His name is Don McCullen. He's a photographer. He's a photojournalist. And in the past, he was a war photographer. And now he's older. And he said, now I just want to stick to the British landscape and just take landscape photos, because I want to erase what kind of photos I took in the past. And he personally wants to forget that part of his life, although he strove to become well-known and to achieve success. And the way that I thought or think about boxing is similar to that. Obviously there's a big difference in what he did and boxing, but there is a parallel, and that is that that's a part of my life. I don't want to be involved in it anymore. I don't even watch boxing anymore. And growing up as a kid, I used to go to the boxing gym. I begged my mother to go to the 5th Street gym where Muhammad Ali used to train, and she wouldn't let me go there because she didn't want me to be a fighter. And now I don't want my kids to be fighters. I don't ever want them to get in the ring and have to experience that, because most fighters, they never make it. And a large percentage of them end up with nothing or end up with very little. And for that, they get the shit beat out of them. They take a beating. And I used to be able to take a beating when I was younger. And that was pretty quick. I didn't always get hit, but if I did get hit, I could take a beating. And that was the thing. I was a little guy, and I used to think to myself, I'm just a little dude, and I'm up against some big dude like on the street. I got to take a beating before I can get to him. And that's how I used to think. And that's a chowderhead way of thinking. And my father and mother, they always stressed to me, use your brain, don't use your body. But when I was growing up, I thought, you know what, anybody can use their brain. I want to show that physically I am capable of being the best or being better than anybody else. And when I was right in the beginning portion of when I came to Thailand, I was always very, very fit, and I was always a hell of a lot more fit than the average guy. Eventually I smartened up and thought, it's great that you're fit. It's great that you're healthy. Being healthy is one thing. Trying to go over the top and become a professional fighter, or dreaming of that and thinking that that's, the ideal life, I was kidding myself when I was younger. And now, having kids, I don't want to ever see my kids get hurt like that. I don't want them to get in the ring. I don't want them to be involved with the people the type of people. There are some good people in boxing, and I know some of them, but there are a hell of a lot of scumbags. And there's one guy in particular that I really don't like, and everybody in boxing knows who I'm talking about. But the thing is that eventually I thought to myself, and my wife even said it to me. She said, you don't like these guys. They're scumbags. So, what is making you? Why do you feel like you need to cover this, and why do you feel like you need to be involved with this when you could go and take photos of temples and take photos of travel, and even if you didn't make as much money, you'd be happier. And so that was kind of what got me to that, and what I saw behind the scenes kind of made me think twice about continuing. And what's funny is I've seen a couple. Well, it's not funny. I don't know if the word's ironic, if that's the right word to use in these situations, but I was in covering a fight here in Bangkok. I used to go to a bunch of fights, and what I would do is I would do little fight reports and stuff like that, and I would submit them to 3 or 4 magazines, and then maybe I'd make $50. So if I got into 4 magazines, I make $200. Well, that was about 8,000 baht at the time, and if it only cost me 500 baht to go there by taxi and to come back and to have something to eat and have something to drink, well, I'm ahead of the game. I'm making cash. And actually, the little local events, I ended up making money more regularly than sometimes I would go abroad. And it was always, I covered the Christian Juan Manuel Marquez fight. And if you're a fight fan, Marquez, he's the guy who knocked out Pacquiao. He's a great, great fighter, and I saw him coming up in Los Angeles when I was younger. And I love the guy. He's my ideal fighter, and I just love him as a fighter. He's a great guy, and he's a good dude. I stayed with him in Indonesia when he fought Christian and got the short end of the stick. And I did think he lost on points, but I thought that he lost on points, and the fight was very, very close. But anyway, my point was that, here I am. I get to know this guy, and I really enjoyed my time, and I got to know all these people, and now, it's just a part of my life. That this is something that I did in my life. But now I don't, if I saw him, it would be like, hey, what's going on? He would remember me. How's it going, Juan? How are you? And that would be about it. It's like the same with Christian. Now, Manny Pacquiao might not remember me, but I did meet him a couple of times. And, at the time it was like, oh, yeah, all right, well, hey, I'm this guy's well-known all over the world, and I got to meet him and sit with him and shake his hand and do this and do that. And, and now I think big deal. It doesn't matter to me because you know what? I mean, I've met a lot of guys who they were stars and rock stars and stuff like that, and they're just regular people. And I guess what I was getting at, the guy Don McCullen, he changed over, and now he doesn't do any war photography. He's too old, and he knows it. But he also doesn't want to do that anymore. Well, listen, I'm not too old to photograph boxing or get involved in writing or anything like that. It's not like that. But I don't want to say I don't have the stomach for it anymore, because I do. I just don't want to. I want to do other things. I want to do things that make me happy. Like him, who he goes out and photographs landscapes and stuff like that. I wish I could photograph like he does, but I choose to do other things. And so that's where I'm at now. I know I'm a pretty good photographer, good enough where I sell stuff sometimes. I make some extra money. It's just another income stream. I know I'm a pretty good writer, and I may not be great at any one thing. But the thing is that if you want to move somewhere else, or you want to become a success, or and especially if you're moving abroad, it doesn't have to be Thailand, it can be anywhere, then you can't just say, I'm going to stop, because you might stop, and the thing is that the next 2 days or 2 days from when you stop, if you had kept going, you might have got the biggest break in your career. You just don't know. And with boxing, you never give up. You get up. You get up off the deck. And now I remember what I was going to say before. The ironic things that happened in boxing was I got to know a kid who came over here and fought a couple of times. His name was Lito Cisnorio. I didn't know him real well. I just saw him around and, hey, how's it going, buddy? How you doing? Yeah. I'm okay. Yeah, all right. Good luck, that kind of thing. And he had a fight, and I talked to him. How you doing? Yeah, good. Good to see you. Oh, okay, all right. He fought this guy, another guy who I knew, the Thai guy who I knew. After the fight, I left. I think I actually brought my kid to the fight because I think I have some photos of it. But after the fight, I went home, and the next morning I read that he was in the hospital. And what had happened was afterwards he was going to get some food. He said he felt sick, started throwing up. Boom, they took him to the hospital. He had to have brain surgery, and he ended up dying. So that I just thought, wow, you never want to think about it in boxing. Because the thing is, you never want to give up. You want to always keep on fighting. But when is it where's the line where you say, okay, that's it, it's enough. I don't want to keep going because I might die. Because if you give up, then people think you're a chicken. If you don't give up, and if you ever watch, there's a guy, now I'm talking to people who know boxing, but if you ever watched Gerald McClellan and I think it was Nigel Benn, Gerald McClellan went down to one knee, I think with 4th or 5th round, and he was holding his head. And the announcer's going, what's going on? He's given up. Oh, I can't believe it. For what? What's going on? And he kept blinking his eyes. It turned out that he was seriously injured, and now he's in a wheelchair, and he never fought again, and he's got some serious problems. But then the other thing that happened was that I went to Russia, and I went with a fighter who was world ranked. And all right, this was when there was floods in Thailand, and it was difficult to get around, and there was things going on. The guy had been hurt and all these things, and so he wasn't 100%. We went to Russia. We just took the fight because if he'd won, then maybe he'd get a world title shot, and all that is immaterial. What happened was during the show, before the fight, I'm in the locker room with him, and there's another guy in there, and I go in to get some ice somewhere else, and then there was another guy over there that was fighting the guy in the locker room where I was. And they go out, they fight. My guy goes out and fights. The fights are over. I go back to the hotel. We're winding down, and it turns out that the guy that had been in my dressing room was killed in the fight. Those things, along with the shadiness of the fight business, and I mean, would I get involved in it again? I guess if the money was right, maybe. And the other thing was that one thing that you need to know, if you're in the fight business and you're not the money man, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. People, they listen to the money man. Whatever the money man wants to do, that's what people do. And that was something that was frustrating to me and to many other people. But, I had a good time. And I, like I said, I did a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to ever do, and I may never do again. And I did a lot of things that people will never do in their life, and that I'm happy that I got to experience. So, but now, I'm back to, I could say I'm schlepping a camera, but I really enjoy what I'm doing. And I like making YouTube videos, although, sometimes I feel like I'm a little burnt out and I need a break or whatever. And then usually after a couple of days or a week, I feel better and I'm ready to go again. That's where I'm at right now. And I know that I didn't get into everything, and I probably could do 10 parts on exactly what happened in my life and how I got to where I am today and this kind of thing. hopefully you got something out of these videos about how I moved to Thailand. Anybody can do it. I'm a firm believer of that. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter. I was a hustler. I've always been a hustler. I'm the kind of guy who I used to mow lawns and wash cars and babysit. Just I got to make that money. And my parents would say, "Oh, you want a TV for your room? Well, you're gonna have to buy one yourself." And I was like, "Really? That's a couple $100. That's a lot of money." I was a kid, And then I went out and hustled, and I made it, and I bought it. I wanted a ping pong table. I went out and hustled, and I bought it. And now I do the same thing. I hustle. I hustle, and I try to work, and I try to drum up business, and I try to make money one way. And sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, I probably tried to make money 20 different ways, and maybe it's worked 3 or 4 different ways. But this is the thing. At least come over and give it a shot. If you're thinking about making the move, come over and give it a shot. I mean, don't put yourself in a position where when you go back home, you're living on the streets, or you're living on the streets here. Always have a backup plan. And now, between my kids and my wife and, we always have little things where, we make a little money from this, a little money from that. I've got to go photograph an event. I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or in the next couple of days. And, I'll make a little money from that, a little money here, a little money there. And I'm not rich, but I definitely am rich in experiences, and I'm not starving. So anyway, man, I didn't mean to talk for this long. I went way over what I wanted. Hopefully you enjoyed listening, and you'll continue. So please do me a favor. Share my videos. If you watch my videos, share them. Click like. Stick them on Facebook. Stick them on your Twitter. Forward them. Show a friend. Do whatever. Show somebody who's got a lot of followers that or just do what you can. If you can help me out that way, I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, I'm Scott. I'm an American in Bangkok. Chok di la jerken mai.